When I attended college, I used to walk into the city center during the lunch breaks. One day I wanted to see if any new movies had arrived at the local store not far from school. This was not a video store, but a store of assorted goods. Everything from toys to hardware and tools. And of course some new and popular VHS movies. They were always cheaper than the video store down the street. I got inside, and quite absent-minded had to push myself around the two guys crouching on the floor. I thought nothing of it until I passed them and looked back at them. They looked quite ragged and sort of like some of the homeless drunks hanging around the city. I started watching them and observed that they were filling their pockets with nails, screws, and small tools from the lower shelves. I quickly understood that they were stealing. I ran up to the counter to let the store know, and passed the line. I start saying, "Excuse me, but," and the clerk cuts me off telling me to get in line. I say yes, "I'm sorry, but a couple of," and she raises her voice and tells me to get in the back of the line. No cutting. I'm so surprised at this, and I don't answer quickly enough. She yells at me, "Get to the back of the line, kid. Have some respect for the elders in front of you." I remember feeling my face burning, but I turn around and get to the back of the line. And I wait. 4 people in front of me, and I look back at the 2 thieves when they leave the store. 3 people, 2 people, 1. And it's my turn. The clerk scowls at me, and I feel the anger burning in my cheeks. Hi again. What I wanted to say earlier was, 2 guys were stealing your stuff. They left shortly after I got to the back of the line. That was all, and I turn and leave. The clerk's change of expression was a marvelous thing to behold. By all accounts, my father was an obedient child. Sometimes a little too obedient. As it was common to use an absolute metric ton of hairspray at this point in time, that's what his brother did, use half a can of hairspray in a closed bathroom, then lit a match. Don't know why, probably teenage stupidity, but as you'd expect, the bathroom was now on fire. The family was leaving, and Dad happened to notice that where there used to be towels, there are now fireballs. Note that this room was on the 2nd story, and the floor was carpet. This will be important later. Naturally, he runs down to tell his mother. "Mom, the bathroom is O." "Not now, Mike. Get in the car." "But Mo." "Get in the car, I won't ask you again." As I said. Obedient child. No further attempts. Once everyone was in the car, buckled in, and on the road, his mother finally asks, "Okay, now that we're all in the car, what did you want to say?" To which he calmly replied, "The bathroom's on fire." Aftermath. Mother immediately turns around, runs inside the house, and takes the burying towels. Instead of throwing them into the metal tub or out the window, she runs with burning towels, dripping fire all the way back down the house and out the door, thus stubbing this story the day we got rid of, now burned, carpet for the rest of the family. So my dad is a pastor, and has been for most of my life. As a minister, he needs to be on call 24/7 in case of an emergency or a general need in the community. This includes everything from hospital visits to deaths in the church. When he does minister to people, he keeps what was said and how he did private so people can feel comfortable coming up to home if they need to get something off their chest. This is a good ministry, good person thing to do in general. Also, in general, since ministers can't take Sundays off, they usually get Friday and Saturday off instead of the regular Saturday and Sunday. With this in mind, the personnel committee gave him the regular Friday and Saturday days off. This went on for a while until the personnel committee randomly decided to not allow my dad to have Friday off. Mind you, they didn't do this to the other ministers on staff, and my dad kinda pissed. So now on Fridays, instead showing up to the office, he just ministers to the family. When the personnel committee asked what he does on Friday instead of showing up to the office, he told them just that. When they asked how he does it, he reminded them that he keeps that stuff private. Don't get me wrong, he'll still go to people if they need him, but to paraphrase what he said, screw the personnel committee. So this happened a while back. I was organizing items in my basement, and while moving a box I managed to slice my hand open on a piece of metal. It started gushing blood almost immediately and sprayed a good section of the floor. I ran upstairs and grabbed a cloth to apply pressure and waited a few minutes. I moved the cloth only to spray my kitchen counter with more blood. Now, I guessed from the glimpses I got of the wound, I would be needing stitches, but my main concern was trying to stop the bleeding the best I could. I made a makeshift tourniquet and waited a bit longer. Nope. Still gushing. I drove myself to the ER, completed the triage question, and sat down waiting for my number to be called. Once I see the triage nurse, I tell her what happened and she types away at her computer, never once looking over at me. Now at this point the cloth I had wrapped around my hand was clearly saturated with blood and getting worse by the minute. The nurse says she needs to see the wound. I explained that every time I release pressure the wound gushed blood, so this wasn't feasible. She huffs and rolls her eyes, clearly doubting the severity, and says, well, I'm the nurse here, and I need to see it. I reiterate that it is gushing and the pressure should not be removed until the bleeding can be properly controlled. She again rolls her eyes, but this time she reaches over and forcefully grabs my arm. I went to warn her again, but clearly my warnings were falling on deaf ears, so I just let her do it, knowing full well what was going to happen. And guess what? She pulls off my makeshift tourniquet and blood splattered her right in the chest. She recoiled, dropping my arm, sending more blood splatter to the floor. She stands up and looks at me in disbelief. I told you, was the only thing I could think of saying. She stormed away, but not before literally throwing my blood-soaked cloth back at me. I just sat there unsure of what to do. About 5 minutes later a different nurse comes out in full splatter gear. Face shield, gown, and gloves. Thankfully this nurse was in better spirits while she finished triaging me. She never asked to see the wound,